We're gonna give you the best recovery drink that you've never had, and we're gonna start right now. Resistance-based training, endurance training, anything in daily life, we need protein to optimize our recovery, to make sure that we can handle the daily grind. We need vitamins like vitamin D. We need minerals like zinc, calcium, phosphorus, magnesium. We need energy from fats and from carbohydrates, lactose, but also conjugated linoleic acid, omega-3s, omega-6s. All of this stuff is extremely important with that daily grind. It's well known that malnourished individuals are much more likely to be prone to disease, to be prone to other autoimmune issues, to any type of problem based off their overall health, because they're not getting those nutrients, they're not getting those vitamins, they're not getting those minerals. And that takes us to where we are today. We are here at Wholesome Dairy Farms with UPenn PhD Mark Lopez, who's also a grass-based farmer. So I'm here with Mark Lopez, VMD from UPenn, factory farm vet turned grass-fed farmer. And we're here to discuss one of the wildest drinks that you've never heard of, or you might even be afraid of, and that's gonna be raw milk. So the way I would get milk is we would pull up here, none of this barn existed, and we would come up the steps. I'd have Lincoln when he was like 6 months old, walk into this room. This is like the parlor where they would jug everything, jug all the milk. I'd get 30, 40 gallons of milk, a whole bunch of cheese, beef, drive home and eat cheese right off the block. But this is where the cows get milked.
This is where we milk the cows and feed them. They come in here and they're out on the pasture all night long, grazing, sleeping, and then in the morning they're usually at the gate ready to come in. They know the routine.
Okay.
We feed them and milk them, get up, lay eyes on them. These guys are trained in good cowmanship.
Okay.
So they can look at a cow and see if she's right or she's wrong. Most often they're right. Milk them, kick them back out on the pasture so they can graze during the day.
So what do they get while they're milking?
They get hay. This is grass hay.
Okay.
You know, it's just dried grass, and they get a pelleted mineral supplement with an amino acid supplement as well. They really take to the amino acids. And these guys are metabolic athletes. They metabolize more energy in one day than it takes to run the entire Tour de France.
Oh, Jesus, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So how much does one cow weigh?
Well, these are Ayrshires, so they're a little bit smaller than the big Holstein cows. A big Ayrshire might be like 1,000, 1,100 pounds, at least in my herd. And my cows are even a little bit smaller than that. They aren't even big Ayrshires. They're sort of like medium, or some are small Ayrshires. So I can have one of these cows that can be like, 900 pounds, 950. But a large, high-producing Holstein cow that makes most of the milk out there in the market, she'll come in as a heifer at 1,200 pounds.
Oh, okay.
She'll be 1,400 pounds as an adult. Yeah, they're big.
So they're way bigger.
Oh yeah.
But not as much milk fat.
They make a lot more milk, and you can feed them to get a pretty decent milk fat level, but that's pretty high performance. For these cows, grazing, we're kind of not really making as much milk as a high producing Holstein. Cows out there making like 80, 90 pounds a day, 100, 150 pounds a day. I even heard tell of a 200 pound a day Holstein.
Really?
Cow. Yeah.
What were they feeding it?
Huh?
Steroids? Was it on? Was it taking D-ball?
I don't know what that is, but it sounds bad. Maybe. These gals, they're making like 40 pounds.
Okay.
Okay. So they're making half as much as a lot of the high-producing Holstein herds out there. So I'm not trying to make as much milk as possible.
Right.
I'm just trying to make the best milk possible.
Right.
If someone is truly pasture-based, grass-fed, how much are your cows making? And if they're making like 40 pounds, yeah, he's feeding them grass. With grass, there's a limit to how much they can eat, and that puts a limit on all the nutrients they can take in.
Okay.
And so they're just limited. So this is the office. This is where you work. When a cow gives milk, all right, who is this, Senorita? Yeah. All right, so Senorita's milking right now. The milk is coming out of her udder through the teats into the claw, and you can see the milk going down into the claw, all right? And there's a vacuum that sucks the milk up, to the stainless steel line. At this point, it's food. Cow's living tissue inside the cow, and now it's food. You know, that's the transition point. Once it's in the pipeline, it just runs downhill, under vacuum, but it just runs by gravity into the bulk tank, and where it gets chilled, and that's it. That's what we do to it. We don't add anything, we don't take anything out, we take heat out. Cleaning the cow is super important. Before you prep the cow, you gotta make sure that those teats are clean enough to put in your mouth. Now, nobody's putting teats in your mouth, all right? Get that out of your head. I mean, but it's essentially what we're asking.
How do you know I was thinking that?
It's essentially what we're asking the customers to do, because the milk is like surrounding that teat and then going. So there's room for no mistakes.
What is pasteurization? What is homogenization?
In commercial milk, the milk truck comes, picks up the raw milk, takes it to the processing plant where it gets pasteurized. You can get pasteurized at 185 degrees for 15, 20 seconds or something like that. Or it can be batch pasteurized with 145 degrees for a half an hour. Or it can be ultra pasteurized, 195 degrees for like 7 seconds. If I have those numbers wrong, then it's my fault, but it's something like that. And so they presumably kill the bacteria, but the thermophiles live. So that's pasteurization. Homogenization is where they affect the milk fat, so that the milk fat micelles, it's really just spheres of milk fat, that it gets broken up so that the cream doesn't rise to the top. They started doing it when, you know, the old milkman would deliver the milk in the glass bottles to your doorstep in that little box, if you remember that.
Separation, yeah.
You'd see the separation, and consumers would complain, oh, I don't have as much milk fat. And so they were like, we'll take care of that. Nobody's going to see milk fat.
You won't know.
Yeah, you won't know. So that's all there is to it. It's basically it's against consumer awareness thing.
So there's no point really in homogenization?
No.
They use ultra pasteurization as like marketing, like, look at our product. We have it's ultra pasteurized. You should drink ours.
Yeah, it's killed. It's dead.
Yeah. Yeah.
Milk is a living tissue. You know, much like eating, you know, cabbage.
Yeah,
you know, it's alive. It's full of hormones. It's healthy. It's a living plant that you're putting in your body, and you're eating it, and it's giving you life. Now, you can cook it until it's like mush and say, hey, isn't that great? No. And yeah, I can't stand that ultra pasteurized milk. It tastes like cardboard to me.
Yeah.
What a mess.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, so I guess homogenization simply is just like beating the shit out of it so that all of the particles or molecules in it are all uniform, and then it looks like white water on the shelf.
Yeah, I don't like it. I can't even drink it. Yeah.
Early on, 2008, 2009, when we first met, I remember just talking to you about raw milk, and a lot of the concerns that people have are like, oh my gosh, you're gonna die from the bacteria. Tell us about how either you're regulated by the government or how you regulate it yourself. And I remember you even saying we get tested and we have lower bacteria than the pasteurized milk.
Yeah.
So is that accurate, and walk us through that?
What you worry about with milk is the coliform count. Coliform count, that's the count of the coliform bacteria. Coliform bacteria are, like it sounds like, they're the bacteria that form in the colon. Okay. It's basically a marker for how much manure is in the milk, if any. They're the bad guys, okay? We have a maximum threshold of 10 CFUs, that's 10 bacteria. Colony forming unit. When you take the milk and you put it onto a growth plate and you incubate it for 24 hours, if you get a little colony that forms, that means that there was a bacteria there that in the course of 24 hours grew into a whole colony.
Okay.
So you're growing up one bacteria, and it turns into a visible colony of like how many millions. So a colony forming unit is a single bacteria. So we're allowed in our raw milk a maximum of 10 CFUs, colony forming units, per mil.
And that's based off the state's regulations?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture puts as its maximum. In pasteurized milk, it's the same. Okay. After you pasteurize it, there's so much bacteria in there that it can survive pasteurization and still have 10 CFUs in the milk after pasteurization.
And yours is raw, being milked in these methods here, and coming back with the exact same or less.
Yeah, routinely my tests come back as less than 1.
Okay.
Like they can't find any.
Right.
It's not that hard. It really isn't. You just have to do an excellent job.
Yeah.
It takes a little bit of extra time. Absolutely. I mean, that's what we really focus on. Like the health of the cows and the quality of the milk is probably, I don't know, what's the greatest asset that I have. I mean, the bank says, you know, what's your balance sheet look like? I say, what's the health of the cows and the quality of the milk like? Because that's what separates us from any other milk. I'm just focusing on doing the best job that I can do. We're living in an ocean of bacteria, many of them quite distasteful to us. Our immune system tolerates some of them and it attacks others. It's not quite as simple as bacteria causes disease, you know.
Bacteria bad.
It's, yeah.
Sterilization good.
Oh, please, don't even get me started. No, you need to show your immune system some level of your pathogen load, so your immune system can be ready.
So Mark, we just walked down here. Mark's very concerned. He's even stated that he's embarrassed because it's recently just poured for like 3 days here in Pennsylvania, and he's embarrassed by the mud. So I want to know, why would you be embarrassed by this?
Well, that's a mess. I mean, don't you just want to see beautiful green grass and, you know, like unicorns and rainbows and, and teddy bears, and everything's just always clean, and all the chains are tight and well greased, and the bearings are packed well, and everything runs perfectly on this farm. The fact of the matter is, when you have a farm, there's always something that's got to get done, something that's got to get fixed, something that's got to get cleaned up, something that's got to get looked after. And that's an example of it, you know.
Not that you want them to be in a dirty area, or, I mean, perceived to the outside world dirty.
Yeah.
But it's healthier for for a cow who's not milking. It's healthier for humans if a non-milking cow is in here, and the milking cows would go out on pasture.
Yeah, keep the milk cows cleaner.
Right.
Yeah,
okay.
That's really important to me.
Okay.
You know, I wouldn't say the heifers get no respect, but the heifer housing area gets cleaned up after the milk cows.
And when I found you, I remember, you know, at the time, I think you might have been registered with like realmilk.com, and I was the like local chapter leader of like Weston Price Foundation at the time, like 2008, 2009. One of the things that drew me to you was, one, your milk tastes better than everybody else's, but also you were very adamant about raising your cows out on pasture. So why is that such an important factor behind, one, the health of your cows, but two, the quality of your milk?
I don't think you can talk about milk without acknowledging that it ultimately comes from the soil. The soil is where it all starts. Nutrients in the soil that the grasses draw from. There's the fungal species in the soil breaking down the organic matter, making it available for the grasses, and the grasses soak it all up. Cow comes along, eats the grass. All right, now the cow that stores it in her body if she's growing, or puts it into a calf if she's pregnant, turns it into milk if she's a lactating cow. We milk the cow. All right, now the cow is also, as she's out there walking around, she's passing manure onto the pasture. All right, some people think of that as a contaminant. Well, manure is great for the soil. It's got lots of organic matter. It's got the bacteria in there, and it goes into the soil, and it puts back into the soil what the grasses took back out. So when you pasture a cow, you're producing milk, even if it's not high quality raw milk. You're producing this milk that's food, but in the same time, you're putting back into the soil. So anytime you open up a box of Triscuits or eating anything at all, if you think in your head, okay, this ultimately came out of the soil, what happened to that soil to put this back into it? Yeah. And when you're having pasture-raised, grass-fed milk, it's a real short trip right back to that, because the cows are out there refertilizing, replenishing the soil, and that's ultimately what makes it all happen. You've got to take care of the soil, because all food comes from the soil.
Let's say they're eating clover or something like that. Does that have an impact on the nutritional aspect of the milk quality then as well, or the milk, you know, the milk macros maybe?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Grass-fed cows accumulate higher levels of the CLAs, the conjugated linoleic acids, and they're a variety of fats. They're part of the fat profile, and you want them in your body. You want to have CLAs in your body. Well, you do the weight training, so you probably advise
to do that,
yeah. Do you do that?
Yes,
you advise people to put
CLAs, and you could get, and a lot of people, I think, all right, I can get some of this from fish oil, or I could get some of this from wild salmon or wild fish. Mm-hmm. But what I think that they are missing, or they just don't know, is that you can get it from grass-fed animals, you can get it from grass-fed ruminants in their milk and in their meat as well, at just as high of a degree, if not higher.
It's healthful for them to be on pasture to increase the CLAs and all the benefits of CLAs. It's not just, it's for, I mean,
Cancer.
they do, oh yeah, it's insane.
Joint inflammation as well.
Absolutely, an inflammatory modulator. Even some pig farmers feed CLAs to their pigs to it because there's been some studies showing that it takes abdominal fat and helps it transition to lean.
Yeah, that's good. So maybe I need to up my CLA intake.
Well, we can do that. We could do a before and after.
CLA injections. Vegans will say, I don't want my animals controlled, or I don't want to have animals dying or being manipulated, their processes being manipulated. I want to, and even to a point environmentally, they would argue that's why they're being vegans. How would you address those specific claims?
I like vegans. They're sincere, you know?
That's how you're addressing it?
Look, I say get the protein you need in your body the way that you can do it. If you can't handle meat, you know, hey, do your thing, you know? I got no problem with you, you know?
It's not to say that there's poor animal farming practices, like that there's not. There's clearly poor animal farming practices out there. That animal production, and you've worked in that field in the past, that exists.
Yes.
But this exists as well,
Yes.
and there is alternatives, and there are ways that we can improve the production.
I understand people's objections to the bad things that are out there. I've seen all the YouTube videos of this is what happens on dairies, you know, and cows screaming. And I've seen stuff that made me want to vomit. I've seen stuff that makes anything on YouTube that you can find pale.
Right.
I've seen with my own 2 eyes, and it makes me sick to my stomach. I know it's happening out there. It's just not happening everywhere.
Right.
And so when you compile it into a video, you put it up on YouTube, and you have the narration saying, this is what happens, we saw this and we saw that, it kind of like really oversells it. Now, like you said, you're right, there's bad stuff happening out there. There's bad stuff happening in all kinds, everywhere.
Yeah, and we have to be educated and make that decision, like, all right, what am I going to support personally from a family mindset as well? Sure. Are we going to support this, or are we going to support, you know, this?
You can't just assume that because someone has animals that there's some sadist that's putting up all this capital and this investment so they can just be a sadist to animals. You just can't assume that.
Right.
You know, it's like saying, hey, you have kids. I heard there's child abuse. You must abuse your kids.
Yeah, that's fair. That's actually very fair, yeah.
Where else are you going to get high quality protein, and what's going to be the total footprint? I'm talking about the trucking, the refrigeration, the processing. What about the packaging that went into all of that?
Right.
You know, and all that processing. And what did you lose along the way with all of that processing, by the way? Milk is a pretty good deal. In my mind, by my calculations, milk is a really good, ecologically, sustainably sound way of getting high quality food. It might be the easiest thing. You know, cows are the godmothers of humanity. We domesticated them like over 10,000 years ago, all right? And they've guided us through it. They've been good for us. They're not this sort of like horrible nightmare for the environment that they're made out to be sometimes.
Why does milk get such a bad rap?
One of the most common things that I would hear is, I'm lactose intolerant, but I can drink your milk. There's something about your milk that makes my lactose intolerance better. I drink your milk all the time. I get no problems. Yeah, but I'm lactose intolerant, All right, pal, if you're lactose intolerant for real, and you're drinking my milk, that's got all the lactose in there.
Right.
You're not lactose intolerant. You're something else intolerant.
Well, what is lactose?
Lactose is milk sugar. Okay. Lactose is what is the carbohydrates in milk. That's what supplies a lot of the energy, the short-term energy.
Basically makes it taste so good.
It's sweet, right? It gives it a sweetness. And then when you ferment the lactose, so when you make yogurt or kefir or cheese even, the bacteria, the fermentation bacteria, take the lactose, it's 6 carbons, and they split it into 2 3-carbon lactic acid molecules.
Right.
And that lactic acid makes it acidic, and you get curdling, thickened yogurt, all right? And so lactose is what's behind making cheese and what's yogurt and all of those things. So lactose is a sugar.
I've always gone through this cycle, and even when I first met you, I was diehard fermented foods. I was making all my own fermented foods, kefir and everything. And then we have all of those old videos from like 2008, 2009. And I've sort of just go through these cycles and I'm back on this kick. But recently, Stanford just published a study called the Fee-Fi-Fo study, and it was fermented and fibrous foods. And so they found that if you have 6 servings of fermented foods daily, your gut microbiome is going to be more prolific and more diverse. Mm-hmm. And on top of that, you'll be able to digest other foods better, and you're going to be leaner as well. And they actually brought up like kefir and how important kefir and yogurt play with that, along with sauerkraut, kimchi, kvass, stuff like that. But kefir was one of the things that they actually had in this study where they had people consuming it on a regular basis, essentially because of this.
I think it's also good for your mind.
Yeah.
Bacteria, they produce serotonin.
Yep.
And your enteric nervous system is like connected to your central nervous system, and it's sort of like it's a gateway to the world around you that your brain is sensing and talking to your enteric nervous system. Your enteric nervous system is basically a separate brain that's running in your gut, and it communicates to your central nervous system brain. It tells you that things are good. So people suffer from mood disorders. People suffer from
depression.
All kinds.
This was actually in the study too, where they talk about this, that overall well-being was drastically higher because you have more energy, you have a better mindset and a better outlook on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. And it's actually similar to like, it's a cascade in a positive way when you're eating more fibrous foods or more fermented foods versus if you're somebody who consumes high amounts of alcohol or something like that, and it completely ruins your gut. Your gut is communicating with your brain.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, isn't it? It's not what we're taught.
No.
At least not what I was taught in school.
And in your case, in all reality, it's the soil, the health of the soil will have such a positive impact on the food product, which in turn is going to have a positive impact on your gut and your brain. So if the soil is healthy, from a human being perspective, we're going to be, from a societal perspective, we're probably going to be healthier.
Everything is connected, Daniel-san. We're all connected. Everything.
You're right, though. You are right. So I would recommend having at least 2 to 3 glasses of raw milk a day, maybe 4. Try to avoid having a gallon or more a day like I did for about 3 years of my life. What do you have to say about that, Mark?
Listen to your body.
Make sure you know your farmer, you have a good relationship established, and you know their farming practices. That's going to help you with your overall comprehension of the food-based industry. So make sure you crush raw milk daily. That's really good. It's
delicious.
I think this is the other thing. This is a little bit off our closer here. It's just like ice cream to me. It always tastes like ice cream. That's like the absolute best way to put it. So if you want help with your overall nutrition, click on the link down below. You can pick up our high performance nutrition. And if you want more content to help those brain gains, check out our Masters of Sport podcast. And we're even going to release a full interview with Mark on the Masters of Sport podcast. Because freaks, if you want to become a champion, you've always got to cultivate your power. This is where you're supposed to say peace, Mark.
Peace, Mark.
Peace.